Hey everyone, listen closely. There are secrets we carry, burdens we hold in our hearts, and sometimes, just one small moment, one seemingly innocent detail, can tear through the fabric of a life we once thought was perfect. I've heard countless stories, confessions whispered during late-night phone calls, desperate looks when the curtain has fallen. But today, the story I want to tell you, it's not just a secret. It's a nightmare woven from threads of trust, love, and betrayal. A nightmare a woman had to face when she simply opened the laptop of the man she trusted most in the world. Picture this. Her name was Eleanor, a classic name, evoking images of elegance and timeless beauty. Eleanor wasn't the type of woman to snoop or to be suspicious. She was a landscape architect, her hands rough from the soil and her soul as romantic as the gardens she designed. She loved nature, loved early morning mist, and the smell of damp earth after a rain. Her relationship with David, the man she'd lived with for 3 years, seemed built on the strongest foundations. They had talked about the future, about a small house with a wide porch, about children running around in the yard. They had even looked at engagement rings, half-joking conversations about, "When are you going to ask me?" David, a financial analyst with a calm demeanor, deep green eyes, and a perpetual smile, was the epitome of the stability Eleanor always sought. He was attentive, always remembered important dates, and often left sweet little notes on the fridge. Their life together flowed smoothly, sweet as honey, without a ripple, without a single sign of anything amiss. That evening, David said he needed to work late at the office. Nothing unusual about that. He often had urgent projects to deal with. Eleanor decided to stay home, relax after a long day working under the scorching sun, and refine the drawings for a new community park project. She made a simple dinner, spaghetti with homemade tomato sauce, a dish David loved. Time passed, and David still hadn't returned. Around 10 p.m., a slight headache began to plague Eleanor. She remembered David kept a bottle of pain relievers in his desk drawer. His desk was always incredibly tidy, everything in its place. Eleanor walked into David's study, a small, cozy room with tall bookshelves and a distinctive scent of paper and wood. She opened the drawer, found the pills, and then, her eyes inadvertently scanned David's laptop sitting on the desk. It was still open, the screen still bright, but there were no work windows. Instead, a website was displayed, a website Eleanor had never seen before. Though she had no intention of snooping, a strange feeling, an inexplicable urge, made Eleanor hesitate. Perhaps it was just a news site or a forum David followed. But the image on the screen, the prominent words, started to create an uneasy feeling in her stomach. It was a wedding registry website, and not just any site. It was a wedding registry specifically for engaged couples, where they listed the gifts they wished to receive. Eleanor felt a cold current run down her spine. Her heart began to pound, so hard she could hear it in her ears. No, it couldn't be. David and she had never talked about a wedding registry. They weren't even officially engaged. This had to be a mistake. Maybe David was helping a friend. He was kind-hearted, always willing to help. Eleanor tried to reassure herself, but her hand trembled as she touched the trackpad. The cursor moved, and she saw the names of the engaged couple. The man's name was David Miller, and the woman's name was a complete stranger, Emily Clarkson. Eleanor's whole world seemed to collapse in that instant. Not a slow collapse, but a powerful electric shock, paralyzing all her senses. Her breath caught in her throat. Emily Clarkson. Who was Emily Clarkson? No such name had ever been mentioned by David. No hint, no insinuation of this woman's existence. Eleanor felt as if a giant iceberg had just dropped into her heart, freezing every emotion, every thought. She reread the names over and over, as if doing so would change the truth. David Miller and Emily Clarkson. The wedding date was clearly stated, September 15th this year. Less than 3 months away. Less than 3 months away. The man she shared her life with, shared her dreams with, would be marrying another woman. Her fingers scrolled down and she saw the gift list. A high-end knife set, an expensive espresso machine, luxurious bedding sets, even a honeymoon trip to Santorini. Every item was a stab to Eleanor's heart. A cruel reminder of a future David was building with someone else. A future Eleanor thought was hers. She felt her head spin. The air in the room seemed thick, hard to breathe. This wasn't a joke. Couldn't be a joke. Everything was too detailed, too specific. David had been living a double life. One life with Eleanor, with promises, with loving gestures. And another life, secret, where he was planning a wedding, a new life with Emily Clarkson. Tears began to stream down Eleanor's face, hot and salty. They weren't tears of immediate sadness, but tears of shock, of feeling deceived to her very core. Eleanor stood there, motionless, staring at the laptop screen, as if it were a gateway to another dimension, a dimension she hadn't known existed right next to hers. The smell of spaghetti still lingered in the air, a cruel contrast to the wreckage in her heart. She remembered long nights talking with David, the future plans they had drawn up together. The sweet kisses, the tight hugs, the whispered, "I love yous." All of them became a colossal lie, an elaborate play in which Eleanor had been tricked into starring. Her headache now turned into a fierce, throbbing pain, as if someone was pounding on her temples. She felt cold all over, even though the room was quite warm. Panic began to surge. What should Eleanor do? How should she confront David? How could she utter these words, when they were stuck in her throat, heavy as stones? The question, why, echoed in her head incessantly. Why did he do this? Why deceive her so cruelly? Eleanor couldn't find any answers, only emptiness and extreme pain. This was not just a betrayal. This was a destruction. Destruction of trust, destruction of the future, destruction of the very person Eleanor thought she had become next to David. Everything she knew about David, everything she believed, shattered into a million pieces. And the most terrifying thing was, she hadn't had a single doubt. Not a clue, not a warning sign. David was a brilliant actor, a man who had hidden another life so perfectly it was frightening. Eleanor took a step back, feeling as if her legs had no strength left. She didn't know what to do, what to think. Her whole body trembled uncontrollably. The feeling of betrayal seeped into every cell. This wasn't just a heartbreak. It was a gaping wound, bleeding and constantly aching. She looked back at the screen, trying to find an explanation, a reason to deny what she was seeing. But there was nothing. Only David's name, Emily's name, and the wedding date. The wedding date she, Eleanor, had never known. A strange name, a strange future, a strange life, all woven from the lies David had built around her. And now, the curtain had been torn, revealing a naked and painful truth. Eleanor felt as if she was adrift in a nightmare she couldn't wake from. The laptop still emitted its cold light, illuminating the cruel truth. She didn't know how long she had stood there, perhaps only a few minutes, but it felt like hours, days had passed. The initial shock gradually gave way to a cold, simmering anger from deep within. Anger at David, anger at herself for being so trusting, so blind. How could she not have seen? How could she have missed the signs? David was always private, but Eleanor never thought that privacy concealed such a monumental secret. She recalled the times David said he had sudden business trips, the late-night calls he answered in another room, whispering phrases that sounded professional but now held a completely different meaning. The dinners he missed with the excuse of too much work at the office. Eleanor had accepted it all, trusting his explanations, trusting the love he had for her. She even felt guilty sometimes for thinking David was too busy with work and forgetting about her. Now everything was clear. It wasn't work. It was another woman. Eleanor's fingers trembled as she scrolled further down the registry website. She saw photos. Photos of David. And Emily. Emily Clarkson. She wasn't a woman with shoulder-length brown hair, but a woman with voluminous chestnut hair, large, round eyes, and a radiant, genuine smile that made Eleanor feel nauseous. In one photo, David had his arm around Emily's waist, both smiling brightly at the camera, as if they were the happiest couple in the world. In another, they were holding hands, walking on the beach, with the sunset behind them. These were photos of a genuine love, a love Eleanor had once believed David felt for her. Every photo was a direct stab to Eleanor's heart, making her feel as though she was shattering. She realized that David had been living two parallel lives, one life with her, and another, seemingly more genuine, with Emily. He had deceived her brazenly, without an ounce of remorse. The sweet memories Eleanor cherished suddenly became repulsive. Every moment, every word, every loving gesture from David became a meticulously crafted lie, a painstakingly arranged pretense. Eleanor felt foolish, pitiful for being so easily deceived. She backed away from the laptop, feeling as though she was in a cage with no escape. This truth was too big for her to accept. She wanted to scream, to smash everything, to run away from this house, from this life. But she stood there, motionless, as if nailed to the floor. Eleanor felt a physical pain in her chest, a crushing weight that made it hard to breathe. This wasn't a movie. This was her life, and it had just been torn into pieces. And then, a thought flashed through Eleanor's mind, a cold and terrifying thought. Perhaps David hadn't been working late. Perhaps he was with Emily. Perhaps, while Eleanor was making dinner for him, waiting for him to come home, he was somewhere with this other woman, planning their wedding. The thought made Eleanor feel as though she was about to vomit. She felt an overwhelming contempt for David, a contempt she never thought she could feel for anyone, especially the man she loved. Eleanor began to pace the room, her steps unsteady. She needed to think. She needed a plan. But her mind was blank, filled only with chaos and pain. How to confront David? What would she say? "I just found your wedding registry with another woman?" It sounded ridiculous, absurd. She felt as though she was playing a role in a tragic play. She looked around David's study, the room she had decorated, where she had placed their photos, the gifts they had exchanged. Every item in this room, every memory tied to David, was now tainted by betrayal. The photo of them on their trip to the Grand Canyon, where David had told her he couldn't imagine life without her. The coffee mug Eleanor had bought him, with the words "World's Best Man," all became evidence of a lie too grand. Eleanor didn't know what to do with the raging anger inside her. She wanted to destroy everything, to burn this house down, to erase every trace of David from her life. But she knew that doing so wouldn't change the truth. The truth was there, undeniable. She took out her phone, her fingers trembling as she scrolled through her contacts. She wanted to call someone, her mother, her best friend, Sarah. But what could she say? How could she explain this? How could she tell them that the man they all loved, trusted, was a cruel deceiver? Eleanor didn't want their pity. She didn't want them to look at her with sorrowful eyes. She wanted an answer, an explanation. But from whom? From David? Would he tell the truth? Or would he just put on another performance? A small sound from the door. David. He was home. Eleanor's heart leaped in her chest. She felt a strong urge to close the laptop, to erase all traces of what she had seen. But then, a stronger sense of determination rose within her. No, she wouldn't hide. She would confront him. She wouldn't let him deceive her for another minute. Eleanor took a deep breath, trying to keep her voice from trembling. "David? You're home." She tried to make her voice sound as normal as possible, but she knew it was choked with emotion. David walked into the study, smiling as usual. "Hey, love. Sorry I'm late. Work was a bit intense." He set his briefcase on the desk, not noticing the laptop still open, not noticing Eleanor's red eyes, not noticing the obvious tension in the air. "Do you want some spaghetti?" Eleanor asked, her voice sounding alien to herself. "Great. I'm starving." David walked towards her, put his arm around her waist, and placed a light kiss on her hair. A kiss full of deceit, a gesture Eleanor now found repulsive. Eleanor couldn't bear it anymore. She took a step back, moving away from his embrace. "Do you have anything you want to tell me, David?" Her voice trembled slightly, but she managed to keep it steady. David looked at her, his expression slightly confused. "What's wrong, love? You seem strange." "Strange, you say?" Eleanor chuckled bitterly. She turned around, pointing at the open laptop. "Do you want to tell me about this?" David turned to look at the laptop. His face instantly changed. The smile vanished. His green eyes widened in shock. He stared at the screen, then looked back at Eleanor, his face pale. Silence filled the room. A heavy, terrifying silence. Eleanor could hear her heart pounding, and David's ragged breathing. This moment, the moment she had been waiting for, had arrived, and it was more painful than anything she could have imagined. Silence enveloped David's study, a deathly hush, broken only by Eleanor's ragged breaths and the frantic pounding of her heart against her ribs. David stood there, frozen, his eyes fixed on the laptop screen, where the wedding registry with Emily Clarkson was still starkly displayed. His face was pale, all color drained, leaving only shock and extreme fear. He had been caught. There was no denying it. Eleanor looked at him, feeling a whirlwind of emotions inside. Part of her wanted to scream, to tear him apart. Another part wanted to collapse, to sob uncontrollably for the love and trust she had lost. But deep down, a chilling coldness was growing. She was past the shock stage. Now was the time to face the truth. "Do you have an explanation?" Eleanor asked, her voice hoarse, each word like a dagger slicing through the air. She tried to keep her voice from trembling, to maintain a resolute expression. She would not allow him to see her weakness. David remained silent. He just stared at the screen, as if it were some kind of demon. Then he slowly lifted his eyes to meet Eleanor's. His green eyes filled with remorse, but Eleanor saw only deceit. "Eleanor, I can explain." His voice was weak, trembling, completely unlike the confident tone she was used to hearing. "Explain what?" Eleanor scoffed, a bitter, humorless laugh. "Explain about Emily Clarkson? About your wedding in September? About the honeymoon trip to Santorini you're planning with her?" She emphasized each word, wanting him to feel the pain she was enduring. David took a step back, as if Eleanor had slapped him. "No, it's not what you think, Eleanor. Let me explain. You have to understand." "Understand what?" Eleanor cut him off, her voice now slightly higher, her restraint slowly fracturing. "Understand that you've been living two lives? Understand that you've lied to me, deceived me, betrayed me for all these years? You've been with me, made love to me, said loving words, while secretly planning another life with another woman." Tears started to flow again, but this time Eleanor didn't try to hold them back. These were tears of anger, of humiliation. David reached out a hand, as if to touch her, but Eleanor recoiled, evading him. "Don't touch me," she said, her voice filled with loathing. "Don't pretend anymore. What have you done, David? You've made a fool of me. You've turned 3 years of my life into a joke." He hung his head, not daring to meet Eleanor's gaze. I know I was wrong. I'm sorry, Eleanor. I truly am sorry." "Sorry?" Eleanor burst into a bitter laugh. "You think an apology can erase all of this? You think an apology can make me forget what you've done? You think an apology can give me back the trust you destroyed?" David looked up, his eyes red and tearful. "I didn't want to hurt you, Eleanor. I really didn't." "Then why did you do it?" Eleanor screamed, no longer able to hold back. "Why did you do this to me? Do you love her? Do you love Emily Clarkson? Or do you just want another life? A life without me?" David sighed, a heavy, despairing sigh. "I don't know where to begin, Eleanor. Things just got complicated." "Complicated?" Eleanor repeated, full of disbelief. "Complicated when you're deceiving me? Complicated when you're about to marry someone else? Don't give me those cliches, David. Tell me the truth." David began to speak, his voice growing softer, as if he was confessing a crime. He said Emily was a client he had met on a project. Their relationship was initially professional, But then it gradually developed. He said he tried to end it, but he couldn't. He said he felt torn between the two women, but he couldn't choose. He said he loved Eleanor, but he also had feelings for Emily. Every word from David was a punch to Eleanor. He loved her, yet he could still deceive her so cruelly. He felt torn, yet he still chose to proceed with another marriage. All the reasons he gave sounded so weak, so selfish. Eleanor couldn't believe what she was hearing. This wasn't the man she had loved. This was a stranger, a liar, a traitor. "So, you loved both of us at the same time?" Eleanor asked, her voice now chillingly calm. "You pretended to love me while you were planning a life with her. Do you think I'd believe that, David?" David hung his head. "I know it sounds bad. I know you don't believe it. But I really didn't know what to do. Things just went too far." "Too far?" Eleanor scoffed bitterly. "You've gone as far as to register for a wedding with her." "David, too far is an understatement." The anger in Eleanor surged like a fierce fire. She didn't want to hear any more excuses. She had heard enough. She had seen enough. All she wanted now was for him to disappear from her life. "You know what, David?" Eleanor said, her voice now completely calm, but with a terrifying stillness. "You didn't just destroy our love. You destroyed my faith in people. I don't know if I can trust anyone after this." David looked up, his eyes filled with despair. "Eleanor, please, don't say that. I'll do anything to fix this. I'll cancel the wedding. I'll cut off all contact with Emily. I swear." Eleanor looked him straight in the eye. "You swear? How many times have you sworn to me, David? You swore to me that you loved me. You swore to me that we would have a future. And it was all a lie." She felt an immense weariness wash over her. She had no more strength to argue, to confront. All she wanted was for it to end. "Get out of my house immediately," Eleanor said, her voice like ice. "You have no right to be here anymore." David looked at her, his face incredulous. "Are you kicking me out? Did you not hear what I said?" Eleanor snarled. "Get out of my house, now, and don't ever come back." David still stood there, motionless. Eleanor felt a surge of anger. "Do you want me to call the police? Or will you leave voluntarily?" David looked around the room one last time, his eyes resting on the open laptop. He sighed, a heavy, pained sigh. He knew he had no way out. He had been caught and it was over. He walked towards the door, without another word. As he passed Eleanor, she felt a shiver. This man, whom she had once trusted implicitly, was now just a stranger, a betrayer. David opened the door and walked out, closing it shut behind him. Eleanor stood there, listening to David's footsteps fade away. As the sound of his car starting and driving off, a feeling of emptiness washed over her. He was gone, but the pain remained, the betrayal remained, and the biggest question, whether she could ever heal from this wound, still hung in the air. Eleanor's life had changed forever, in just one moment, when she opened David's laptop and discovered the horrifying truth. Eleanor stood in the empty room, where just minutes ago it had been filled with tension and anguish. David was gone. The laptop remained open on the desk, a cruel testament to the truth that had just been exposed. The house suddenly felt colder and larger than ever. The smell of cold spaghetti lingered in the kitchen, a reminder of the dinner she had prepared for the man who had deceived her. Now, as the initial chaos subsided, a profound emptiness welled up within Eleanor. Not the emptiness of David's absence, but the emptiness of a future erased, a dream shattered into thin air. 3 years. 3 years of her life, memories, plans, all tainted by deceit. Eleanor felt as though she had just undergone surgery without anesthesia, and now the real pain was beginning to set in. She walked towards the laptop, her fingers trembling as she touched the keyboard. She scrolled through the wedding registry again, each gift, each photo, not to inflict more pain, but to etch it into her mind, to never forget the cruelty of this betrayal. She closed the window, then shut down the laptop. The screen went dark, But the darkness in Eleanor's heart remained, deep and terrifying. Eleanor went into her bedroom, the room she had shared with David. Everything was familiar, but now it felt strange, repugnant. David's pillow was still beside hers, still carrying his scent. Eleanor picked it up, and a surge of anger flared within her. She threw the pillow to the floor, then threw everything of David's out of sight. His clothes, his books, the watch he usually left on the bedside table. Eleanor didn't want to see anything that reminded her of him. She turned on the bathroom light, looking in the mirror. Her face was pale, her eyes swollen and red. She didn't recognize herself. Eleanor had never thought she would have to face a situation like this. She had always believed in honesty, in the purity of love. And now that belief had been shattered. Eleanor didn't know what she would do next. Call someone? Tell someone this story? She wasn't sure she could utter the words. How could she explain to her parents, who had adored David, who considered him like a son? How could she tell Sarah, her best friend, that the man she had picked engagement rings with was a deceiver? The nausea rose again. Eleanor ran to the toilet and vomited violently. Her body reacted to the stress and pain her soul was enduring. After she finished, Eleanor sat down on the cold bathroom floor, hugging her knees, and let the tears flow endlessly. Tears of anguish, of disappointment, of anger. She remembered a saying her mother used to say, "Time heals all wounds, my daughter." But could time heal this wound? A wound that wasn't just a cut on the skin, but a deep wound in her soul, in her trust. Eleanor didn't know what the future held. She didn't know if she could ever love again, if she could ever trust anyone again. David's betrayal didn't just take away his love. It took away a part of Eleanor herself, a part she didn't know if she could ever reclaim. But deep within the pain, a small flicker of light began to emerge, a flicker of resilience. Eleanor was not a victim. She was a survivor. She had discovered the truth, however painful, and she had faced it. She hadn't allowed David to continue deceiving her. That was a strength she hadn't known she possessed. Eleanor stood up, looking in the mirror again. This time she didn't just see a pained face. She saw determined eyes, a strong will. She had been hurt, but she would not be defeated. She would need time to heal, a lot of time, but Eleanor knew she would get through it. She wouldn't let this story define her. She wouldn't let David define her. She was Eleanor, a landscape architect with a romantic soul, and she would find the beauty in her life again, one step at a time. This journey would not be easy. There would be days Eleanor felt weak, days she wanted to give up. But she knew she was stronger than that, and she would never, ever forget the lesson David had taught her. A painful lesson, but a necessary one, about trust, about deceit, and about the hidden strength within herself. And that is Eleanor's story, a chilling reminder that sometimes the most terrifying truths are hidden right before our eyes, in the places we least expect them. Eleanor's life changed forever in just one moment, a moment that exposed a lifetime of lies. What happens next for her? Can she heal and rebuild her life? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think Eleanor should do? And more importantly, what does this story make you think about the secrets others might be hiding? Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss our next shocking and dramatic tales.